The insider-outsider story that I've been telling you for a few years now is really heating up right now in a really interesting way. And there's something you need to know in order to be able to understand what is happening and why. And, well, I was going to say the how is, I guess, fairly evident, and why, with regard to the possibility that Joe Biden might run for president. The conventional meme, the conventional story that is out there is, well, in fact, here's from the Financial Times today. Megan Murphy here in Washington, D.C. writing, Joe Biden, the U.S. vice president, has long been considered the Democratic Party's best plan B if Clinton and her campaign can't pull it off, if they can't make it work, if they stumble. My words. Well, stumble, actually, is from her piece. With concerns about Mrs. Clinton's falling poll numbers mounting every day, some senior Democrats believe now is the time for Joe Biden to become Plan A and are clamoring for him to jump into the race. Now, Joe Biden is 72. He's roughly, he's a year younger than Bernie Sanders. So it's, anybody who said, oh, Bernie, he's too old, they're going to go for Biden. So apparently age isn't a deal. Back to this article, Mrs. Clinton's gaffes on the campaign trail have alarmed many big ticket donors and even some of her own allies. I would say, for example, last week when she said, "Well, if you want to know my position on Keystone XL, elect me president, and I'll tell you." That is going to be. I think it already is. I'm sure that that her biggest backers all across the country at the time she said that were going, "Oh, that's good." That's just like when John Kerry said, "I voted for it before I voted against it." Or vice versa. Anyhow, Mrs. Clinton's gaffes on the campaign trail have alarmed many big-ticket donors and even some of her own allies who fret that she has failed to learn the lessons of 2008 when she lost her party's nomination to Barack Obama. Now, step into the Wayback Machine. What was it about Obama that caused him to beat Hillary? I don't think it was just that he was a better politician or that he gave a better speech, although I think that he gave a better speech, certainly. Whether he's a better politician or not, I don't know. I think that they're probably very much the same. But he was perceived at the time by us, by the voters, as the outsider, and Hillary Clinton was perceived as the insider. Now, what we didn't know when we went with amazing enthusiasm in 2008, I mean, people dancing their hearts out, people with tears in their eyes as Barack Obama was nominated and brought into the White House. And rightfully so. I mean, the first black president of the United States is amazingly, truly, profoundly, deeply historic. And he's still the first black president of the United States and will be forever. And he's had a very good and consequential presidency. But he was not an outsider. And that was that whole hope and change thing, was people basically were saying, we want an outsider. We want somebody who's not wed to the old politics, somebody who's not in bed with the banksters, somebody who will send the banksters who destroyed this economy. Keep in mind that happened in the months leading up to the election, in the year leading up to the election. Somebody who's destroyed this economy, who will send those banksters to jail. Somebody who will bail out the middle class. Somebody who will do something about student debt. These are issues that Barack Obama actually ran on. Somebody who will make sure that everybody has health insurance in this country. Somebody who will make sure that, Medicare is a public option. These are the things that Obama ran on. They're not the things he delivered. And the reason why, in part, now a large part of the reason why, I mean, some of these things he actually tried to deliver, and Nancy Pelosi did a marvelous job, but there were only between 71 and 74 days when the Senate was not filibuster proof. And basically during that time, they got through Obamacare and about 15 or 20 other really good programs, but not major consequential things like, breaking up the big banks. So we thought we were voting for the outsider. And as I keep saying, and I think that it's starting to dawn on people, it's not left, right. It's not Democrat, Republican. It's not liberal, progressive, conservative, Tea Party. It's insiders versus outsiders. And on the Republican side, what has happened is that the outsiders, the Koch brothers and the billionaires, and the people like, Ted Cruz and Mike Lee and well, Mike Huckabee, a whole bunch. Huckabee not so much, I suppose, but have become the outsiders. And Jeb Bush is the quintessential insider. And you're having and the ultimate outsider on the Republican side, of course, is Donald Trump. Which brings me to Bernie Sanders. I don't think that it's Mrs. Clinton's gaffes on the campaign trail that are hurting her. Again, in this article, it says her favorable rating among voters, favorability ratings have dipped significantly since she launched her campaign in April, with only about 40% of Americans now saying they find her honest or trustworthy. Now, they did not compare those numbers to Bernie's numbers, which are really good. Bernie is the only candidate on Republican or Democratic side who has a net positive perception among the American people. The only one. But they don't mention it in the article because, the Financial Times, they're insiders too. So she goes on to say a Biden bid for the White House would also face serious obstacles. He's run twice before, in 88 and 2008, and he's currently polling in the low double digits, lagging behind Mr. Sanders. And he faces some of the same concerns about establishment connections that have plagued Mrs. Clinton. Now, this is about as close as this article gets to telling, the unspeakable truth. Here's what's actually going on. The insiders in the Democratic Party, the Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her buddies, and the very wealthy people who fund the Democratic Party, who are very proud to be part of the inside. Now, there are some very wealthy people who fund the Democratic Party who are also on the outside. But there are some, and they tend to be people who have a very specific issue. They're all about climate change, or they're all about the LGBT rights, or they're all about immigration, things like that. And they typically have a personal affiliation with that issue. But the insiders, the Paul Bagalas of the world, the Bob Shrums of the world, the political insiders, the Debbie Wasserman Schultzes of the world, frankly, well over half of, maybe 3/4 of the Democratic Party, maybe 4/5 of the Democratic Party in the Senate, and 3/4 to 2/3 in the House. There are a few outsiders among them, and Bernie is one of them. So when Bernie was asked about this on Sunday, he said, I've known Joe Biden for many years. I'm very fond of Joe, but I think the American people who are seeing the middle class in this country disappearing, massive levels of income and wealth inequality, a campaign finance system that is literally corrupt now, owned by billionaires. The American people want to go beyond conventional establishment politics. In other words, Bernie is saying, enough. The insiders have busted everything up. The insiders have ruined things. And, it's very much like the Mafia. And I don't mean this in the most pejorative context, but there are serious parallels to be drawn here. It's not, the political parties don't operate on, prostitution and selling drugs like the mob does, like the Mafia does. But they do operate on bribery. And in the Mafia, if you're a made man, if you've gone through the now I'm on the inside process, you're set for life. And it's the same way in both political parties. If you're a member of the inside, keep in mind, Bernie is one of the few guys in the Senate who's not a millionaire, much less a billionaire. If you're a made man or woman in the Democratic Party, they will always have your back, but the price of that is you always have their back. It's always the establishment. What we're looking at here is the permanent institutional insiders. And Chris Matthews went off crazy on this over the weekend. I got to play that for you after the break.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
Arguably, FDR came in as an insider, became an outsider, and the party followed him. Reagan came in as an outsider. The party followed him. Now he's viewed as an insider.